years ago, Nigerians stood in the sun, defied every division of tribe and religion, and voted for a promise. They voted for a belief that our votes would matter, that our voices would be heard, and that tomorrow would be safer than yesterday. But as we marked another Democracy Day this June 12th, I looked around our country and I had to ask myself, what exactly are we celebrating? Because right now, for millions of Nigerians, democracy isn't a celebration. It is a question of survival. As I speak to you right now, there are parents in your state looking at an empty bedroom because their school children are still in the hands of terrorists. Think about that. Whole communities across Borno, Zamfara, Niger, Katsina, and Kaduna are going to sleep tonight not knowing if they will wake up tomorrow. And look at the state of our security architecture when a retired general, a man who spent his life wearing the uniform, a former spokesperson for our Nigerian army, like retired General Rabi Abubakar, can be taken away from us and die in the custody of kidnappers. It sends a chilling shiver down the spine of every ordinary Nigerian. Because if the state cannot protect the men who used to protect us, who is safe? And then, to add insult to injury, we are watching a system where hundreds of former terrorists are being rehabilitated and sent back into the society, while the families they displaced, the people they traumatized, are still rotting away in IDP camps. We are told it's for peace, but to the victim, it feels like justice has been buried alive. And if you dare speak up, if you dare ask why, we know what happens to you. The space to complain is shrinking. We are watching journalists, activists, and everyday citizens being picked up and prosecuted just for asking those in power to do their jobs. More than 2 decades into the Fourth Republic, we have to look at ourselves in the mirror and ask the hardest question of our generation. Are we truly deepening a democracy? Or are we just practicing elections every 4 years? Are we building a nation? Or are we just managing a crime scene? My name is Hero Daniels. Welcome to Rubbin Minds. Today we'll be talking about Democracy Day, Insecurity, and the meaning of freedom in Nigeria. Joining me in the studio is a lawyer, Justice Ojieno. Welcome to the program.
It's my pleasure to join you on this day. It hurts me. I'm sorry, you've not even introduced the next guest, but I'm almost losing my emotions from the prologue.
Okay, also joining us from our Abuja studio is Justice Chidebere, also known as Justice Crack. Welcome to the program.
Daniel, thank you so much for having me. I'm pleased to be here. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we're going to jump straight into it. I'm going to start with you, Justice Crack, as you're popularly known. Before we get into the Democracy Day, let's talk about what you went through and the experience you went through. As a father, as a human being, you went to drop off your kids in school and you didn't come back home. How has that experience been for you?
Well, it is a lifetime experience that it will live with me forever, and it's changed my life, and it's something I did not prepare for. I never believed that such thing would happen. Like you said earlier, I started my normal day, drop off my wife at her place, our working place, and dropped my daughter at school just to do my daily activity, and I vanished. I won't really go into detail because, of course, the matter is still before the law courts. But it's an experience that will forever live with me, and I learned a lot.
Okay. Very quickly, Justice Ojieno, we just celebrated June 12th, and the atmosphere wasn't exactly celebratory. What would you make of our Democracy Day in 2026? Okay,
for me, I think it wasn't celebratory because we don't have democracy in the way other people have it. What we have, I dare say, is demo democracy. By saying exactly that what we ordered wasn't what we got. So I feel that it's an absolute shame that a person like Justice Crack will still be having to go through exactly what he's going through. We should also remember that one of the charges leveled against Nnamdi Kanu was that he insulted the president. Showore is presently going through that phase now where he's being charged for insulting the president. If you go to other democracies, we'll see that Donald Trump insults anybody in the way he wants to insult, and everybody too, they say the most vile things against him because it's a healthy democracy. Of course, that's not to say that not all democracies have their problems, but if the right to freely express yourself, which is one of the most fundamental pillars of democracy, is constantly being eroded, then definitely, we cannot call that a proper democracy. It's just democracy in that, yes, it is not a general or retired general that is holding the helm of affairs, and we have some ceremonies that we can use to call it a democracy. For example, maybe we say we are having elections every 4 years, but it's the vote of the average Nigerian counting. So a lot of things that make a democracy a very standard democracy is largely missing in ours.
Okay, so when we talk about the heroes of democracy, most often than not, we talk about people like MKO Abiola. I wanted to know, Justice Crack, how would you rate how human rights are being treated, and are we truly democratic in this dispensation? Justice Crack?
Yeah, I'm with you. If I should grade democracy in Nigeria today, I think the obvious answer is there. But I believe that democracy goes beyond voting every 4 years. The question we should be asking ourselves is that, are the people really, do they have the democratic right to question some decisions that our leaders are making? Do they have the democratic right to, ask for accountability? Do they have the democratic right to be able to freely speak and still maintain their freedom? There's this popular saying in Nigeria that there's free speech, but your freedom after speech is not guaranteed. Then we should be questioning our democracy. But although I still believe that we are work in progress, and with time, perhaps we'll get it right.
Okay, so when you look at certain incidents where people have tried to freely express themselves, like the NSAS protest and other protests, and we all saw the aftermath of that. Now, where does a free protest, right, freedom of expression, at what point, from a human rights activist point of view, does the citizen cross the line? Justice Crack, at what point do you think a citizen crosses the line?
Well, it depends on how you see it. The question is, in democracy, is there a line? Yes, there might be a line. But when you critically criticize or question the decisions of your leaders, sometimes like the MSAS you're talking about, demanding for accountability. We all know what happened during NSAS, the reason why NSAS happened. People were brutalized by the department called SARS. And Nigerians say, oh, we don't want this anymore. Please end it. That is demanding for accountability, demanding that this should not happen. We don't like it. Of course, we are living in democracy, right? So we should freely say we don't want this, or we should freely say we want this. But the way it turned out, you can't totally rule it out, because we should be questioning those who are in power when such things happen. Because in democracy too, we should also be questioning the people in power as of the time, because their personal interest, their personal will could override the democracy at that point. So we should be narrowing it down to the person, the people in power. That's what I think.
As much as I don't want to get too deep into your experience, and obviously the case is still in court, and we're trying to be, careful not to affect your case. However, your issue became a national conversation, and some people would also argue that sometimes democracy has to be demanded and has to be fought for, and cases like yours sort of pushed the citizens to go on social media, even physically, and try to demand for your release. So how has that shaped your perspective as to the progress of our democracy, or lack of it thereof?
Well, first of all, we need to understand that what happened to me, while I was in DSS custody, I didn't know what was happening outside until when I was granted bail. and I started seeing every publication on social media and all that. And that made me, you know, while I was there, I questioned some things. I felt bad. I was, you know, really pained, angry, and all that. But when I came out and saw how Nigerians came out and what they did, my love for a better Nigeria increased. My love for Nigerians increased. See, what happened to me and the reason why people came out is not just because of justice crack. What happened to me can happen to anybody. Because I believe that injustice to one is injustice to all. If it can happen to justice today, it can happen to Rubbin tomorrow. It can happen to the other justice next tomorrow. It can happen to Peter tomorrow. It can happen to another person. So when Nigerians come together like this to demand justice for somebody, like they demanded for me, which I really, really appreciate, every single person who lending their voice, who came out, who protested, who posted, who talked about it, you know, they did it because tomorrow it could happen to another person. And the institution, the government, would take note that, no, the people don't like such kind of thing, you don't do it to another person. We are in a democratic government, and people should have level of freedom to express their dissatisfaction in the government. What they don't like, they should freely say it. Because in a democratic government, that the government blocks their ear, do not want to hear what the people are saying. That government is already telling you that, yes, though there is democracy, we're not going to follow it. We are, you know, demophos. You know, I don't want to believe that we're in a demophos government. It is democracy, and I believe there is also room for change. Thank you.
All right, Justice Ogieno, one of the reasons why a lot of Nigerians are beginning to agitate, both on social media and physically, is because of the economic situation we find ourselves in. A lot of people have the opinion, and I think it's also very glaring, that we've not had the best of economic times. Top of the challenges we face in this country is security. So I want us to focus on security. What message does this send to the ordinary Nigerian when a full retired army general loses his life in the custody of kidnappers? What is the hope for the ordinary Nigerian?
Absolutely nobody is safe. Nobody. Whether you are serving or retired. If even you are serving at some point, you have to hang your toga. So you are not safe. And it doesn't matter where you remove yourself to, where you retire to, except you go to retire into a bunker. And even if you retire into a bunker, even in the bunker at some point, you have sustenance issues. So you are not safe. So the best deal for every politician, every leader in Nigeria, is to ensure that we eradicate this. Whether they are perpetuating it or perpetrating it because for political gains or not, really doesn't matter. We have to all come back to the table and fix this, because if we do not fix it, nobody is safe. It doesn't matter how many security guards they have at the moment. At some point, they will hang it. And when they hang it, they will come to now be one of us. And when they become one of us, they are not safe.
This is really heart-wrenching for many reasons, and it's sparking up a lot of conversations around how can citizens even protect themselves. State governors are complaining that they are not the commander-in-chief when it comes to security. So it means, like, to take, for example, what happened in Oyo, eventually 1,000 forest guards were approved, right? And then even other people are now saying, so, okay, why is 1,000 forest guard approved for Oyo when this has been happening all over around, the north and all around? You know what I mean? So now, what do you think is really the way forward? Talking about state policing, and what is the challenge in terms of implementation, and why we haven't had, you know, each state have their autonomous security system to protect themselves?
For me, I do not necessarily think that state police is the answer. And I say this because presently we have policemen everywhere, including all the nooks and crannies of this country. The challenge we have is that our institutions are weak, including the Nigerian police. We have a situation where once a Yoruba man gets to the helm of affairs, the only person qualified to lead the police becomes another Yoruba man. If you go to the north too, a Fulani man too, same thing. If they don't have somebody at the helm of affairs as a Fulani man, they will get a Fulani adjacent to lead the way. I do not think that. So, and of course, we can say, okay, let's try other strategies to see how it will stick. But I'm mortally afraid of what the governors will do. I'm mortally afraid of what these problems that beplagued the federal police too will do when it gets to the state police. And every Nigerian too should be mortally afraid of it. And that's why whatever law it is they are passing, whether they are, of course, they have to amend Section 214, 215 of the Constitution at least, and whatever law it is that they are putting in place must be something that is easily amendable, easily and swiftly amendable. When they start seeing that the monsters that we are crying about now, when it starts rearing its head and starts haunting Nigerians, because we are complaining that our freedoms are being stolen. By the time these people have the reins of power, they'll probably crush protesters much more easily than it's being done by the central government at the moment. So we must ensure that the laws are easily and swiftly amendable, otherwise Nigerians will groan in pains and regret what these emperors will do with this power that's been given to them.
Let us address one of the elephants in the room, because these days there seems to be quite a lot of elephants. 30 days in captivity. These are kids. We literally saw the video of these kids being maltreated, being flogged. 30 days. And everybody is still going about their businesses. The markets are still open. The restaurants are still open. Life is still normal as it is for the rest of the citizens.
I'm holding myself.
What is happening?
I'm holding myself from grieving for this country and what these politicians and leaders, tactless, clueless leaders, are doing to this country. It didn't have to be like this. It was creeping in and creeping in and creeping in. And it looked like the Southwest was the last stronghold where this could possibly happen. See what happened. They went to 3 schools. That tells you that they were not in a rush. It wasn't something they were doing in a jiffy. It's not it's not a heist. They do not have to run around. They did it, and they are daring the government. They are daring the government. They are putting their fingers in the eyes of the government. First, they slaughter a teacher. Now they make children, innocent children, born of women. They are making them feel I don't know how these children will recuperate, will become human again after all this level of trauma that have been done to them. That is, if they even have the luck of making it out alive. I do not see them making it out alive in one piece. I do not see the best psychologists having the power or the competence to be able to reinstate them and make them human again. And that is when in normal parlance, they say Nigeria happened to them. And it is very, very unfortunate that our government have kept running this country down to the point where even innocent children are not free from the misfortune that can happen to you just because you have the accident of being created in the geography called Nigeria.
Justice Crack, do you think we are angry enough? Because these kids were born they were just born in the midst of this entire thing. Insecurity happened way before they were even born. And these are children. These are kids. And my issue and the question is, are we speaking up enough? As a nation, are we clamoring enough? And this is not even the first time this has happened. This has happened all over. The Chibok girls. Too many incidents, too many to recall. So the question is, from a citizen point of view, are we angry enough? Are we speaking up enough? Is it just about talking on social media? Does the government know that, yes, this is a state of emergency? So, Justice, please let us know. Do you think the citizens are angry enough?
Well, you know, I used to say something. Our strength as Nigerians has become our weakness. Nigerians are known to be resilient. We are strong. We survive any situation. But this situation that we are surviving right now is a situation we are not supposed to survive. Nigerians are known that by this time around, we have been pushed to the wall, but instead of fighting back, we are climbing the wall. You know, when my namesake Justice was speaking, tears rolled down my eyes because I remembered my experience the day I was adopted. And I was begging them that my daughter is in school. I will need to pick my daughter by 2 o'clock. Please, let me talk to my wife, at least, even if let her pick my daughter. Because my daughter is just 5 years old. And I love my daughter so much that even when somebody else goes to pick her in school, she doesn't allow. Now, imagine a terrorist going to pick her in school. Imagine the trauma she will go through. Imagine how I will feel. Imagine how I was feeling in detention, knowing that my daughter will be missing me. When I came out, my wife told me that my daughter was asking her that, is my daddy dead? Would they kill my daddy? Where is my daddy? Imagine how those children will be asking that question in the forest. I'm a father. I have 2 kids. That is what goes through my mind every day, that I have sleepless nights. We have, when insecurity gets to the level of affecting children, then we're in trouble. You know, Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu declared state of emergency in Rivers State for something that was not a national threat. It was just a political difference between predecessor and the present governor and all that. And the president has not seen any reason to declare state of emergency in Oyo, but he was reactive in recruiting 1,000 forest guards. It happened. It has been happening. My question is, for how long will we be reactive and not proactive? I give you an instance. I beg the Nigerian Security Agency to please deploy the technology they used in tracking me down, the technology they used in jamming my phone, the technology they used, how fast and swift they were in picking me up, and I didn't know where I was. If they can use that same technology and rescue those kids, I was harmless. I can't even kill a fowl. That's how harmless I am. And such technology was deployed to me. And whenever you plan protests in Nigeria and see the kind of armor, tanks, the whole police, you'll be surprised that, do we have this amount of security in Nigeria? The second day I was brought to the Federal High Court, I saw the army, police, and I was asking them that, is there any riots, any protest happening somewhere? They said, because people are planning protests for you. And you deployed all this. While I was coming to the court, the DSS had a truck of armed 4 DSS behind, in front, and 4 with me. The pictures are there. Guide somebody who can. I was not even armed. Nothing. I'm not a terrorist. And you cannot deploy such kind of. I had so much security that a school in Oyo State did not have 1 police officer. They operated more than 30 to 1 hour and made away with our children. And no 1 police officer was there for them. It is heartbreaking. My pain is not what I went through. My pain is what others will go through. I received a VIP, or will I say a good treatment in DSS. But a child somewhere in rural village do not have a police officer to watch over them. We saw one place in the north that an order was given for all military people to withdraw. And after they withdraw, something happened. Today, we don't know who gave the order. You know, my conclusion, see, I'm very emotional about this discussion, because combine my experience and as a father and what people are going through. We saw a video of a father the other day begging Sheyi Makinde, they say, please help me, my wife. Imagine a terrorist beheading a school teacher on a video. Imagine how the family will feel watching that video. Imagine the trauma that will be with the children. That man's children will never. I don't know how do you want to tell them about Nigeria? What do you want to preach to them about democracy? My conclusion to this is that the leaders of today do not really care about the leaders of tomorrow. Honestly.
Justice, this is very emotional for myself, and I'm sure everybody watching right now. You made a very strong statement, which was your daughter was asking, is daddy fine? Have they killed daddy? And this is your daughter that is at home. Now, with the case of these school children that were abducted, the reverse is the case, because this time around, they are the victims. Their parents are asking, are my kids fine? So you can imagine where a situation where kids are supposed to be at home, they are in the forest. The forest is not a home and can never be a home. I want to juxtapose what I just said with the fact that in Borno, hundreds of terrorists that have been tagged repentant have been reabsorbed into the society. And this is not the first time this is happening. There is an entire program with federal government funding that caters to rehabilitating terrorists and absorbing them back into the society. How are we sure that these rehabilitated terrorists are not just going to go back into the society and wreak more havoc? Justice.
That's not even the worst part. The worst part is them granting intel for free to their people that they are saying they have jumped ship from. For example, the bandit leaders. If I integrate soldiers in quotes, reintegrate soldiers in quotes, bandits in quotes into the Nigerian armed forces, what stops them from practically selling us out to their in quotes former camp? Why do you think generals are just falling and dying now? Why? It is because they have unrestricted and unfettered access to secrets of states that is that is supposed to be completely off records for them. And how would they not get it when they are fully integrated, when we are having negotiations with bandits in a way that some of the things that we are not supposed to give them as by way of compromise is what we are giving to them? Why would they not come back and be more potent than they were? How will we get them decimated?
720 is a lot. And where is the accountability of the other ones that have been rehabilitated? Where is the progress report? We haven't heard anything about it.
We will never hear. They have actually done much more damage than has made reportage. And there is no way we will be able to know. And because they are now assimilated into the system, we should be expecting much more damage, because there is nothing more dangerous than a fifth columnist within your ranks.
Now, the argument is that the reason why these terrorists are being rehabilitated into the society is just for peace to reign. So, is there any logic to that?
Absolutely no logic. And that's why I said that, yeah, sometimes the way they negotiate with the terrorists, and if that was one of the terms of their negotiations, I think that it is poison. It is, in fact, the analogy is not better than that of a Trojan horse, where you think you are getting a gift and you are practically bringing the enemies into the center of your army to come and decimate your army in the dead of the night. So I feel that that exactly is what is happening here. We cannot ever justify that. Russians, the way the Russians do it, yes, they get the murderers and all from prisons and they send them to the war front, but they use them as meat grinders. They push them to the front of the war so that they are the first wave that the Ukrainians can actually decimate, and they don't really need them. There is no fallback strategy. They will probably never need them again. But these ones, you don't send them as meat grinders, because there's no way they will see their comrade. What classes in psychology did you teach them? You employed 1 or 2 PhD holders to tell them, be patriotic, don't fight your country. You are saying you are de-radicalizing them. How long does that take? And we know how trainings happen in this country. People just go for trainings and seminars. All they are thinking about is how they will get the ESTA codes, how they will stay in hotel. We have had constitutional conferences in this country where people go at great expense to the nation, and they are just sleeping there. They are snoring. That's the way we organize, and we'll give a report and we'll say, we have done a good job and things like that. How much more where people are not watching, where the cameras, where the members of the fourth estate of the realm are not, to hold them accountable? How are you even sure that they are doing it well? Then next thing, you give them grades that they have passed and you just reintegrate them, voila.
What does the law say about rehabilitation of terrorists? Is it even part of what our law allows? And then does it not encourage people to now even want to become terrorists? Because you become a terrorist, you are rewarded, you are rehabilitated, you get back into the society, while our children are literally in the forest being manhandled, just being traumatized. And this is not the first time. Bring back our girls. You can imagine the amount of the thousands, if not getting close to millions of victims so far from terrorism.
Primary victims, secondary victims, tertiary victims. on all fronts. So we have people who are actually in it. The people who are going to look for the ransoms are also victims. They don't have the money. They go to every length to go and to be able to get the money. They borrow loans they get loans at cutthroat prices to be able to, and also see we have food security issues because people are not even going to the farms. So there are levels of victims to this thing, and no one is immune.
So does the law allow terrorists to be rehabilitated?
The challenge we have is that laws generally, philosophically, are largely promulgated to prevent you from taking an action. There is essentially no law that prevents them from taking this action because generally they will say that it's a moral issue, it's an ethical issue for the Nigerian Armed Forces if they find you fit in learning and character. So it may be that they found those people because their morality has really fallen down. They don't have morale when it comes to military speak. They are just taking anybody in. They reduce their own standard. I dare say that the Nigerian military reduced their own standard of what is qualified to be in learning and character. These people are people of terribly corrupt character. There is no way they can say, oh, because they have gone through 1 or 2 classes, that their characters have now changed, and you are now integrating them into the Nigerian Armed Forces. So I feel that they have failed woefully on that. And unfortunately, we have a rubber stamp legislature that will never, ever take them to task and pass laws to directly and frontally prevent them, in the preventive nature of laws, from integrating or in quotes, reintegrating these people into the Nigerian Armed Forces. And that's part of the reasons why our democracy is extremely faulty, because checks and balances, zilch. And nobody to hold the government accountable, nobody to hold government officers accountable. Recently, we saw the show of shame, where a senator is saying that everybody that's employed in the NNPC is employed because they were recommended or they are children of somebody. And they are summoning the former GMD of the NNPC, and he refused to come. That's not even a sitting member of the executive, but an ex-member of the executive. The legislature has completely lost its teeth. It's a shame. I don't even know why we still have a legislator, because the executive can practically get away with whatever it is they want to get away with at all times. Akpabio cannot do anything. Lawal or Lawan cannot do anything, can never ever stand in the way of the executive, even in pretense. They cannot pretend to even stand in the way of the executive. So it's a shame.
Justice, thank you very much, Justice Ojeno. Justice Crack, when we speak of abduction, you can understand that word because literally some would argue that you were truly abducted. You heard of the story of the retired former spokesperson for the Nigerian army, and sadly he passed away. What does this do when it comes to the mental state of the citizens, and does this instill fear into the citizens? And what does this say for people that want to sort of express themselves in the face of injustice, knowing fully well that even a former army general is not safe?
Well, you know, there's a popular statement I usually make on my post. I said that bad governance is like a rain. When it falls, it will touch everybody. You know, what happened to, imagine a major general that have access to military, that can request for military protection and all that. Imagine him being abducted and he died in that process. Now imagine ordinary citizen like me, that I cannot even afford police protection. Imagine imagine the fear that I will have. It means that we're not safe. When insecurity is in a country, nobody is safe. Even if you are safe now that you have the protection, you are not going to be in that position forever. The day you leave that position, you are at risk. And I want to quickly talk about the issue of that my brother talked about earlier. See, when we are talking about democracy, this is part of it. How do I explain to the next generation that in my generation, justice was tracked? and adopted. But a major general was also tracked and adopted by terrorists. But my security organizations cannot track that terrorist and rescue a major general. And in the other hand, how do I explain it that more than 700 and something terrorists, they call them repented terrorists, are being rehabilitated and probably will be reintegrated into the society or into the security force? I think the Nigerian Army or the Nigerian Security Agency with the Nigerian government, in collaboration with Nigerian Orientation Agency, need to come and explain to Nigerians what that rehabilitation or what repented terrorists actually mean. Because in our understanding as citizens, it means that, imagine, for example, my sister was kidnapped and killed by terrorists. And I sit down and watch you, the government, who couldn't protect my sister, rehabilitating that same terrorist that killed my sister. How do you want me to feel? When we're talking about patriotism, I think the government is also contributing to making Nigerians lose hope and lose faith in Nigeria. The president, when he was complaining, he said something about renewed hope. I don't think this is no longer a renewed hope. This is a renewed sadness. Because how do you balance justice, accountability when you are rehabilitating terrorists without giving those who has been affected by that same terrorist, who the same terrorist has killed people in their village, burned down their houses? How do you tell them that? How do you guarantee to them that you will give them justice? How do you tell them that you give them justice? That bitterness will always be there. And even if it doesn't happen to you directly, for the fact that you are witnessing, we are seeing those things, this is demoralizing Nigerian spirit of believing for a better Nigeria. I think the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu need to go back to the drawing board of that renewed hope. Is it really renewed hope? Like I said earlier, maybe the Nigerian Army and the Nigerian government need to come and explain to us what that rehabilitation means. Because we know what terrorists do. Terrorists kill. They only God know what they do to their daughters, what they do to them. We don't know. I've never been there, but we know that they don't pamper them. And you not tell them, say, hey, yeah, sorry, and don't worry. Once I drop my arm, I'm no longer a terrorist. They will hug you and give you uniform and give you food. Even treat them better. We have our prison filled up with people awaiting trial. You have not rehabilitated those ones. You have not pardoned those ones. You have not given them, like say, reintegration policy or something. Was a terrorist that, my brother? It is really heartbreaking, honestly. I don't want to go further because I'm getting emotional.
It's okay. Thank you so much, Justice Crack. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And thank you, Justice Ojieno. Whether anybody likes it or not, Nigeria is ours and ours alone. And we have to really just fight for this country. Rubbin Mind continues after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Rubbin Minds. Before we went on the break, we were having conversations around the security architecture of this country, and we talked about the Democracy Day that we just celebrated. Right about now, let us move into a topic that is rarely talked about. When you hear the statements, now, man, you be. Half the time when you ask a man, how are you? Just know that the response you are going to get is, I am fine. And I can assure you, a lot of men are not fine. Mental health remains one of the least discussed issues amongst men, particularly in societies where strength, resilience, and stoicism are often seen as, defining characters of masculinity. Many men face immense pressure to provide, to protect, to succeed, to remain emotionally composed, often at the expense of their own well-being. As we celebrate Father's Day in a couple of days, and of course, this month, as you all know, is Men's Mental Health Month. This conversation will talk about, the realities of modern manhood, the impact of societal expectations on men's mental health, and the barriers that prevent many men from seeking help. And to discuss this with me in the studio, the weight men carry, mental health, masculinity, and the silent struggles of men. I have two very wonderful gentlemen. First is Chinedu Abili-Morde, who is a digital consultant. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much.
And I also have Dr. Jerry Oputa, who is a doctor. Medical, I hope.
Medical doctor, yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to start with you, Chinedu. When you hear the phrase men's mental health, what comes to your mind?
Okay, so you know, like every other health related discussion, health is just the general check of well-being. You know, so when we have physical health, we have mental health. We tend to see more of the physical health, because it's more external.
Right.
But mental health is more of the inner checking. Where your mind is at. Where your spirit. Basically, what exactly is driving you at that point in time, and generally how you're holding it together.
Right.
Totally. So it could be positive, it could be negative. It all depends on how exactly you play it out eventually. Yeah.
Okay. That's very clear. Dr. Jerry, why are men expected to be strong? Is it from a traditional standpoint? Who even started, this whole idea that men are not supposed to cry, men are not supposed to show emotions, we all have to be strong? Where did this start from?
Thank you for that question. Ultimately, when it comes to strength, I think strength is a somewhat vague word, because we could talk about strength when you're referring to the physicality of things, and you could talk about strength when you're referring to the mind of things, right? So if we're referring to strength in the physicality, it's pretty obvious, if you're going to be objective in your observation, that men are expected to be strong physically, given that their genetics and their musculature puts them in a position to be stronger. However, when talking about the mentality of things, because men, by traditional standards of society, are expected to be leaders, there are different ideas of what that sort of leadership should look like. And the leadership that had been espoused until recently is one that was devoid of any form of vulnerability, because it was important that the man would image or would signal to the people that he is leading that he is competent and able. But in recent time, we've come to understand and to reevaluate this standpoint to finally accept that vulnerability is a key and integral aspect of leadership, so that the people can reckon with you and at the end of the day find themselves to be leaders as well in their own right. So I think that's just that.
I did my research, and I was told by the internet, maybe I stand to be corrected, that the average lifespan of a man in Nigeria is about 57.
Yes, about that.
7 years old.
About
You're a medical doctor. What is the juxtaposition between the mental and physical health? So how can one, if you don't take care of your mental health, how can it affect your physical health?
Because I know there's this particular French philosopher, René Descartes, and he spoke about the Cartesian self. He said the mind is different from the body. There is no sort of interconnectedness between both. But in recent time, modern psychologists have come up to recant that, to say that that's not true. As a matter of fact, there is an intertwine between how the mind functions and the body functions. And just by your feelings and your emotions, there are certain glands in the body that release certain substances that, when they are not properly mitigated or staved off, they can actually affect your health. Like if you have constantly high cortisol in the blood,
the stress
there are a lot of the stress hormone.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that could happen as a consequence of that. Right. So your mental health basically refers to how your mind, which is the seat of your emotions and your will, reacts to circumstances and how you deal with that. And as a consequence, on the flip side, your organic matter responds. So if you're afraid, you release certain substances. If you're stressed, you release certain substances.
Yeah.
All of these things happen and the body keeps the score. So if you're in a situation whereby you're under prolonged stress without any respite, no room to find friendship, camaraderie, solace, comfort, you'll find that at the end of the day, your body is shutting down.
Okay.
For some people, at least.
Much later, we're going to discuss about community for men, because most often than not, once men get married, it's just their wife, their kids, and then you see even their circle of friends start thinning down, and that has a way of affecting us as men. Let's get really deep into this thing, and let's get practical. So is there any personal experience, Chinedu, that you've been through that sort of motivates you to take care of yourself better as a man?
Okay, so maybe I'll just go a bit personal. I'm currently a survivor of chronic kidney dysfunction, as I said. So I've been managing the situation for about 4 years. I was diagnosed about 4 years ago. October 2022. That's actually, you know, put me in a situation where I've gone through cycles of both maybe depression, if I could put it that way, and also being able to come out of that depression and getting to a point of hope, and now survival, and even before that, now getting to a point of thriving. And we don't take into the factors that our mental health really does help, you know, help us stay strong and manage situations when they come like this. Because yes, you could be physically strong, you know, and you may face situations that are beyond the scope of like the physicality, you know, where your body just can't handle it, and all you just have is your mind. And then with your mind being able to accept and reconfigure that situation for you, you're able to signal to other people that this challenge, I'm sharing it with you guys. I want you guys to also help me out, and in so doing, opening up and enabling, you know, what I call like your support system to really play out its function. And that essentially just, you know, goes beyond your family, and can also, you know, tap into your friends and your, you know, your network. There's a particular saying where I say your network will always determine your net worth. So when you look at your network and you are able to tap into it from a mental point of view, it's not just the financials, you know, but also them knowing and, you know, putting you in their prayers, their minds, and, you know, supporting you in those ways. Those are also key ways that can also help you stay balanced and help things, you know, actually achieve your goal in the long run.
First, I'd like to say thank you for sharing that deeply personal story with us, Chinedu. And you know, it's not everybody will feel comfortable enough to share, but this is giving hope to millions of men that might be in this situation. And that really leads me to a follow-up question, which is, at what point did you discover, did you think if you had done like earlier checkups that you might have discovered, you know, this situation earlier? You know, so what's the importance of men going into the hospital to do like a regular checkup as well?
Okay, and that is very, very, very important question. So upon discovery, you know, I started talking to a lot of other men and I realized that we all have the same habit. We don't do those checkups. We don't believe that every man has this secret feeling that we are Superman. And so when the situations come, you just feel that you can take on the situation and it will get better over time. Sometimes it might not get better. So what I really advise, really honestly, is that as we do every other thing with our checks, even with our cars that we like, let's do the same thing for our bodies. Let's like our bodies as well. Let's like our health. Let's put our health like one of those toys that we look at and we protect. So, you know, you have to go for your checkups, put it in routine, you know, check your BP, check your sugar levels. You know, these things, prevention is always better than cure. That is the honest truth. Prevention is always better than cure. If I had discovered earlier some of the symptoms that I was experiencing and didn't brush them aside, maybe, just maybe, you know, I might not have been in this situation. But also every disappointment or everything is a blessing in disguise, you know. So we're also getting to that point where more men are actually getting a bit more aware of this work-life balance. And I think that is like the main key insights for most of us. Whatever you're hustling for, you know, you should always remember that at some point in time, you know, you want to ensure that you're able to enjoy whatever you're working for earlier on. So do those checkups, you know, and make sure that you're on top of them.
All right, Dr. Jerry, in your line of work, I'm sure you see a lot of patients, and both genders, male, female. What is that one thing you would advise men to do as a medical professional? Like, if there's certain tests that you think every man should do, and what men should watch out for, what would that be?
So as far as this conversation goes, it's quite coincidental that he mentioned something about renal health and having dealt with chronic kidney disease and having to be treated for that, right? I was once in charge of the dialysis center for a particular hospital here in Lagos, and I've worked in quite a number of dialysis centers here in Lagos, right? If we are to make it a male check thing, we would run the risk of highlighting the sexual reproductive health check. So when you say what should men check, your mind already goes to the things that affect men. But I think when we are considering man, it's important for us to consider man not just from the standpoint of the gender, but as a human being. And there are certain things that affect males more than females, but at the end of the day, generally, similar things affect people on both sides of the divide, right? And so you'll find that many people, because men are given to championing industries, being ambitious, undermining the effects of stress, downplaying the long-term effects of not taking care of themselves, and they don't know that maybe they have elevated blood pressure.
Right.
They don't know that elevated blood pressure is one of the leading causes of chronic kidney disease, where from whence we have renal failure, wherein the person will now have to be dependent on a renal replacement therapy like dialysis or require a transplant. So as far as the conversation on health is concerned for men in the medical space, I think we would do ourselves a world of good if we simply subject ourselves to the routine checks like organ function checks.
Organ functions, yeah.
At least once a year. Then if we're now going a bit further, we can go and do the whole colonoscopies and stuff like that. But for every properly functioning hospital, there are a barrage of tests that are referred to as routine health checks that every person, male or female, should subject themselves to. And in such searches, depending on how extensive they are, you might now incidentally find out what is wrong with you as an individual. For men, I would say just go to the hospital. This conversation can skew their understanding in a manner that will make them think that, oh, let me just hear what is necessary for men, but it's what's necessary for mankind. So go to the hospital, get checked, and if there is something that is tailored to your care, you will find that out.
Sadly, we're out of time, and I would really love to unpack a lot of things. Father's Day is a few days from now. I hope your wife has already gotten something for you. Because most women just think it's a surprise. They never prepare for Father's Day.
Here's my wife. Well, I hope she does. But
you don't even know. That's what we're talking about. You know what? We're actually out of time. But yeah, if you're a woman watching this, please make sure that you get something nice for all the men around you, whether your husband, your brother, and what have you. My name is Hero Daniels. I do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Rubbin. I'll catch you next time. Please stay safe.
Come on.